We're on. Incredible. Susie 2 are the only ones that have called in. Bright Angel, Gulf Harbour. Good morning, Bob. I copy you pretty well. I've been calling you actually because I haven't seen any report in this morning. Mike said he had sent you your password information. Did you get it? Over.
Not really. I just attempted to put on the I don't know if it's not there yet, but I could have
So did you get the message? Oh yes, it's just come in. That must have been all good, but all I've got is your heading and speed and no weather or position. So go ahead with your position, Bob. Over.
Okay, I'm curious though why, I mean, I put all of that in the report. Why did it not show up? Over?
Yeah, did you put the position? Oh, there might have been a mess up in the position. And just put the word position in square brackets as per usual, and no use of the word of the degree sign or anything. Anyway, go ahead. Over.
Okay, yeah, I did as per usual, but my position is 2654. Decimal 92 south, 16018.75 west.
Okay, got all that. And how's your weather? Over.
What?
Gosh, you're picking up some local expressions, Bob. It's just as well you're going home. You'll sound like a Kiwi soon. David said, what? He said it was snotty. Oh dear. All right, so you won't want to know that 2C2 is 100 miles from River Bay, and that there are 3 other boats going to head off from Auckland and Opua today in that direction. But no, he wants more specifics. He wants direction and speed. Over.
Anywhere from 5 to 5.7. Anywhere from 23 to 26 knots northeast. Well, is 2 meters and 2.5 meters from the northwest, and the wind waves are north-northeast about 1.5 to 2 meters. And fog is 95%. Also, static is 10, 1 speed, 7 speed, steady at the moment. 3 hours.
Okay, got all that. Yeah, I had your course in speed, and that was about it. So I'll send you a message anyway. All right, we have Bright Angel at 2654 south and 16019 west with snotty conditions. North-northeast 23 to 26, a 2 meter swell from the northwest, and the wind waves are from the same direction as the wind, of course, northeast about at 1.5 meters. 95% cloud cover and 1013 steady, sort of steady on the bar. Okay, got that. Thanks, Bob, and I'll update that, and I'll send you a message today because obviously it is coming through, but just not quite in the right format. So I'll send you a message. I was pretty much out all yesterday, which is why I relied on Mike. Thank you for that. I'm going to just say good morning to everybody that has joined us before we start with you, but I'm going to pass the microphone to David now.
Yeah, good morning, Bob. You're doing pretty good, I guess. So with your winds your winds from the northeast, you're just still getting wind flow from the high pressure area to your east. The minute they start backing to the north-northwest, you'll know that, well, you're well and truly in the frontal band, but that will be air that's coming from the depression to your southwest. Unfortunately, it's to your southwest. It's a pretty nasty one, but anyway, by my guess is Saturday morning, about breakfast time or so, you should be on the trailing edge of the frontal band. In other words, it will have passed through you and off to the east. And then you'll have a bit of a wind shift, more than likely southwest, but I'm not sure. This is a very, very broad frontal band, as we talked about, and a lot of cloud, a lot of convective activity, and a lot of support from the upper levels for it. So I'm afraid you're going to have snotty weather right through Friday, and hopefully Saturday morning
That's our Friday.
we'll see an improvement. Now this Friday, Saturday business is New Zealand Friday, Saturday. Over.
All right, thanks for coming on, Dean. Thank you very much. We'll keep that down.
All right, thanks, Bob. And still, it's amazing. Everyone has good signals from quite a distance. Boy, we've heard that we're getting through up to Kwajalein and all sorts. David's just pointed out something. Oh no, he's trying to persuade me to get him a new computer, and I can see why he needs a new computer, because when I talk on the microphone, it just goes absolutely berserk. All right, good morning to all those who have joined us. If you are going to call in, a reminder, folks, to use high power. You probably think everything's hunky-dory because you can see us well, hear us well, should I say, but we're putting out about 400 watts, and you will only be putting out, if you use high power, 150. So if you are going to talk to us, please make sure you, for the duration of your talk, turn your radio to 150, and remember to switch it back if you're going to do emails, because the system on board does not like a lot of power going out on email. It's quite intense. It's a beautiful morning here at Gulf Harbour, and yesterday we had like a midsummer's day. It was absolutely glorious. 14 degrees it is at the moment because it's clear, crispy sky. We have about 3 knots of variable wind at 1020.4, and it's going to be an absolutely glorious day for leaving if you are thinking of that. Some people have left already yesterday and the day before, looking at our system here. So if you are leaving today, at least it's a good day to get started. A little bit of news. Well, I should just comment, we're talking to a couple of boats way to the east at the moment. We probably won't be doing too much way to the east once they get sorted through, but Tusi Toe and Bright Angel happen to be a couple of special boats with special friends on board, so we're covering them as long as we can. But generally speaking, we start at Tonga and move west. Okay, not sure, haven't seen anybody on streaming at this point. I have actually got my brain around streaming now, so we do have that there. If anybody wants to listen on streaming, go to the website ghradio.co.nz and click on the streaming, and you will go to YouTube. Thanks to Beth, we're learning a little bit more about YouTube chat box as we go. You have to be registered with YouTube, but that doesn't cost you anything. You just have to give them some information about you and yourself, whether it's truthful or not. And she also said that you can only use 200 characters. I'm not sure how many words that is roughly, but anyway, 200 characters should do the job for a question. And also, I'm told that you can't do, there's a space in between your posts, so I think of a minute, just in case you wanted to spam it. But anyway, that's quite useful. If you are listening on streaming, you can get David to ask a question. And there we have Heatwave streaming, and they're about to head up from the South Island. Good morning to you guys. Okay, a little bit of news. Let's do the news thing first that people wanted to have. So far, no one has said what sort of news you really want to hear about, but it's up to my guesswork as to what you want to hear about. Well, it is duck shooting season in New Zealand. That starts on May 1 every year, and every year we have a few incidents. And one person has already been removed from the duck shooting area, accidentally shot. How you could shoot someone when you're meant to be shooting up in the air, I have no idea, but there you have it. A man has actually gone missing and presumed drowned. He went swimming off his yacht in Malaysia and has gone missing. Now here's an interesting one. Russia has built a floating nuclear power plant with the aim of towing it to remote places. Boy, you wouldn't want to bump into one of those on your travels, would you? But you probably won't. It was built on the western side, somewhere around St. Petersburg, I think, and they're going to tow it around up the Baltic and around the top. So it's going to be deposited in a very rough sea area to power. It will link into the grid in some remote place in the top of Russia, and be quite useful, I would imagine, as long as it doesn't come to grief in rough waters. Oh, and if anyone is interested in the America's Cup, which I have to say our interest here wanes somewhat, but anyway, Dean Barker is going to be helming for the New York Yacht Club's entry in the next America's Cup in 2021. New Zealanders will certainly know Dean Barker's name. He was associated with our defence of it, and from about 2000 to 2013 when we lost it. So he will now have to qualify to be an American, which is not very onerous, 380 days in country from September 1 this year to August 31st in 2020. Gee, I wouldn't mind having to go to New York to qualify to be the helmsman of the America's Cup entry. So that's the story there. All right, something of interest to those people who have bills in New Zealand. Our dollar is pretty low at the moment. So if you have American money, it's a very good time to be settling up your account for various boat work or marina fees in New Zealand. It's only 70 cents you get for a New Zealand dollar at the moment. So the American dollar is thankfully much stronger. So you won't be spending as much as you thought you might be spending. So a good time to pay bills because it fluctuates an awful amount. So who knows what it's going to be like next week.
Pacific Peso.
The Pacific Peso, says David. Okay, and we'll end on a funny note. We'll end on French toast. I wonder how many people are having French toast for breakfast this morning. We quite enjoy French toast, but it has nothing to do with the French. Sacre bleu. Evidently, French toast equivalents have been around since ancient Romans in the early 5th century. They had what we call French toast quite regularly. It wasn't quite as fancy. They just soaked bread in milk and then fried it in butter or oil. But later on in the years, in fact in about 1724, an American in Albany, New York, where they've managed to mangle the pizza as well, anyway, a man called Joseph French began making what we know as French toast today, and of course it caught on rather quickly, and that is why it's actually called French toast, after Mr. Joseph French himself. How's that for a bit of news that you really couldn't live without? Okay. Good morning to you all out there, and is there any questions on anything before we start the weather at 7:30? Nothing heard. Okay, just one little bit of news before you leave the country, if you are listening. What you might want to do is go onto our website and download a one-page list of all of the useful frequencies, times, contact numbers for customs people in Fiji and Vanuatu and so on. If you go to the website ghradio.co.nz, click on the radio and communications part, and I'm just trying to do that myself. and you will find something called, I think I've moved it to the top, Marine Radio and Weather Info. So it starts off, it's got all your emergency frequencies, it's got your telephone numbers for getting hold of maritime radio and the RCC, heaven forbid that you would need it. It's got the cruiser nets, the coast station frequencies, it's got the ham frequencies for Tony's Maritime Net and the Seafarers Net, and then various customs information. Now, you might have downloaded this last year, but the fax number for New Zealand Customs has changed. So be sure to download it again. It's also got the times and frequencies for the weather from Maritime Radio. You won't need that when you're up in the islands, but when you are on your way back again and in our skip, that will be useful. And it's got the fax frequencies, and then at the bottom again the international emergency frequencies with the working frequencies that they will move you to. So it's a very useful one-page download, and I would recommend you do it before you leave. It's proved to be the most popular one that was in the system on yet. If you need to contact us, don't forget our new email address is ghradio@extra, which is xtra.co.nz. That's if you want anything to do with weather and comms, and you know how to get hold of Mike at YIT if you need to. It's just mike@yit.co.nz. Okay, 1:30. I'm always a bit late handing the microphone over, but here's the weatherman.
All right, good morning, and I do love French toast as well. Well, we're first today going to look at the 500 millibar chart. As you know, this is my favorite chart, so no groans out there. We've got a left-leaning trough just east of New Zealand, left-leaning, and it's got maximum upper level vorticity or spin, if you will, and that's located pretty much over the Minerva Reef area. Now to the west is a narrow ridge at 500, and it's maintaining a surface high just to the west of New Zealand. We talked about that yesterday. Central pressure quite mellow at 1024 millibar. Back to the 500 millibar now. Over southeastern Australia, we have another upper trough, quite evident. This one it's produced a nasty surface depression that's in the bight of Australia. Already pressures have dropped down to about 992, with a cold front about to pounce on Tasmania. Now our first upper trough that I talked about is maintaining our old complex low system that passed through New Zealand. It's got 4 centers at the moment, but they are all spinning pretty much around 170 west. Now a front from one of the lows that are part of the system does reach up to 30 and 175 east, and it's got a little tiny low center to its north. Now the front becomes quasi-stationary and moves very, very slowly east. In fact, that's the definition of quasi-stationary, moving less than 5 knots. So anyhow, moving slowly east. By tonight, it should be near 30 and the dateline. Now, satellite imagery shows a lot of cloud on the passage route to Newcastle, and back to Fiji as well. And a surface trough is actually drawn on the surface maps to reflect this. So if you're pulling down net surface charts, you'll see it. Now, by lunch on Friday, our high should lie directly over New Zealand, so that's tomorrow. Building a bit, I'd say at 1029, 1030 millibar range. Now the complex low system that we just finished talking about is projected to lie near 35 and 160 west. So it is starting to move off. Now French Polynesia, where 2C2 is at the moment, nearing Riva Bay, they've got about 100 miles to go before they drop the hook. They're sitting under a very, very weak ridge, 1015 millibar, 1015, and that's spread over a very, very wide area. So very little wind, The winds are all quite variable in terms of direction and speed, so they're motoring for the most part, although I think they put up a code 0 to take advantage of some southerlies that they've got now. Now, by Saturday lunch, the New Zealand high moves a little bit east, a tad east. Still strong. It'll be around 1030 millibar. And that complex low consolidates at that point. And it becomes a 991 low. So it is intensifying, consolidating and intensifying. And it's going to lie near 35 and 142 west. And it's going to extend a frontal band. Believe it or not, it goes all the way up to Samoa. The reason I pause every now and again, folks, is to let our amplifier cool off a little bit, let the fan do its job there. Okay, for those underway or leaving today, trying to get north, southeast winds are going to prevail pretty much up to 30 south. Friday and Saturday they'll provide reasonable direction winds, and from 30 south to 25 south, the winds will back a little bit to become more or less easterlies. Now by Monday at 25 south, expect southeast to east winds depending upon where you're going, whether it be Tonga or New Caledonia. Obviously, the shape of the isobars will determine the wind direction, so it will change. By Wednesday of next week, conditions remain pretty good. East-southeast winds at around 22 south. We're looking at about 15 to 20. Now by Thursday, the 10th of next week, we'll have easterlies for Tonga, Fiji, and Nishiam. However, New Cal, we're looking at northeasterly winds, so that's the tail end of the high pressure system. Now also on Thursday, the 10th, we have a low that's looking to develop in the Tasman. Well, it's actually the low that's in the bite right now. When I say develop, it's getting stronger. And it'll be east of Brisbane. This low is moving east, of course. And by about Monday the 14th, the cold front from it is going to be over New Zealand. So that's about Monday the 14th, give or take on that. That's quite a ways out. And that's going to extend north. Now, the cruising route is probably not a good place to be at that time. So those of you that are lagging on taking off, you may want to look very, very carefully at what the future weather is going to bring. It does not look like there'll be much fun out there at that point. Up in the tropics today, we have a trough that runs from Tuvalu to Tokelau. We're going to see quite a bit of these troughs up there. Another lies over Rotuma. We've got a yacht or two in Rotuma. Then it goes southeast, lying between Niue and Tonga. Then it continues southeast from there to that other road that I talked about. Another trough affects Tonga itself and Fiji as well, and it extends to the Banks area of Vanuatu, and then it goes on to the Solomons, the hot pool area. That's what we call the Solomons area. Now this trough also affects Minerva Reef, and it slides down to Raoul Island in the Kermadec. As we mentioned before, we talked about that semi-permanent system. Well, that's it. On the cruising route to Fiji, you will encounter a fair amount of cloud from this quasi-stationary front. It's relatively weak, but it does have plenty of cloud in it. Now, it's certainly evident on satellite imagery, which I look at every day. So watch out for squalls, particularly in the evening. If you've got lots of cloud about during the day, consider reefing before dark. Most of you report doing so anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem for you. Now, I got a pretty good ASCAT pass. This is the microwave satellite that gives me quite accurate wind speed and direction. That pass was pretty much over northern New Zealand. So looking north to 30 south, getting away from New Zealand by a degree or so, it shows cloud and winds The winds from the south-southeast, 20 to 25 knots. That's near 30 south. And southeast, 20 to 25, a degree or so north of New Zealand. It might not be very windy as you depart Opua or Marsden this morning, but as you get north of the country a bit, then you'll feel the wind. And it at least is from a very good direction. All right, lastly, I'm just going to say next week I'll start giving more detailed weather for the island groups like we did last season. However, if you're currently in the islands and you want wind data, etc., give us a call on the radio, and I'll take a look to let you know what things we're looking at for a couple of days. So that's it from me this morning. Again, those on passage and those planning on leaving today, you're going to have a pretty good time of it, I think. Apart from the squally bits, which has to be expected, it should be at least a good situation in terms of wind direction. They'll get up there rather smartly. And we've got a question that came in on streaming. When is the next weather window? I don't know.
Oh, come on, look at it.
Well, I have looked at it, and looking out as far as I can, it doesn't look very good for a while yet. We talked about the low that's going to be hitting New Zealand, and a cold front that's going to be around Thursday the 10th. So you do not want to be leaving about that time. So once that low and associated cold front move off to the east, that may be the next opportunity to leave New Zealand. So after the 10th, but going out that far, as you all know by now, I hope, the models are simply a rough idea of what may happen. So we'll keep you informed. I know a lot of you are ready to go, raring to go probably, and we've got some boats well to the south, Nelson area, and so forth that want to get up there as well. So unfortunately, this is the window as we speak, but the next one is going to be a while. So I'll give this back to Patricia, and we'll see if anybody's out there. Give us a call.
And if you do ask a question like that, folks, it is important to say which direction, because sometimes it will be impossible to get, for example, to Newcastle, but you could sneak off to Tonga. It is quite a significant change in direction, and depending on what's happening over the course of the passage, it could be possible to do one rather than the other. Okay, is there any questions from Radio Land? Please call. No, and my suggestion, if you are up there in Opua, I know what it's like. Take the boat out and do something. It really drives you nuts just hanging around, doesn't it? We did that one year, and it's just no fun. It's best to take off and enjoy a nice anchorage somewhere, Paraparaumu or wherever, and come back to it at a later date. All right, well, that's a nice quick net this morning, and we will be back again tomorrow morning, of course. I hope the weather stays glorious today and that you all enjoy it. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, Patricia and David. And, oh, by the way, I heard from Mike, and he has dropped the CO from his email address. So it's now mike@yit.nz. So if you have any questions for position reporting, etc., on YIT, then just email mike@yit.nz. Couldn't be shorter or quicker, could it? And over the course of the season, once you all get up there in the islands, what I'm going to do is just take one of the features of YIT or Gulf Harbour Radio websites and talk about them, because YIT in particular has some really useful features when you are working, and on passage, in fact. And one of the things I should actually mention now is that, and just look at the help, and you will see this, you can get the reports from boats within 100 miles of you emailed to you, and that is really quite useful when you're on passage to see what the actual conditions are, certainly ahead of you. So look that up before you go. It's not much of a download just to get a Git report, and it is really quite useful. It could also be quite depressing if a boat is shorter than you and is actually gaining on you, but you'll just have to live with that. Some boats are very, very quick, but yeah, very useful to have something like that. All right, cheers everybody. We will talk to you again tomorrow. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, and we're clear. The frequency's all yours. And I'm going to turn the streaming off.